A week 1 presentation for FTH 212-51915. Today's date is March 20th, 2024, and this is for Dr. Elahi. The firearm I have chosen to use for this presentation is a Gen 5 Glock 19. I'm going to start by removing the magazine to show that it is empty. Then I'm going to pull the slide to the rear and lock it to visually show that the chamber is empty. Then I'm going to, for myself, visually and physically inspect the chamber to be sure that there is no ammunition in the firearm. For the schematics, I went to the American Rifleman website where I was able to find an exploded view of the Gen 5 Glock 19. To disassemble the Glock 19, I can use a 3/32 punch and a 1/8 punch, as well as a hammer. The tools I would use for measuring the dimensions of the firearm would be a tape measure, a ruler, and for fine measurements, I will use digital calipers. The dimensions that will be measured on the firearm would be the barrel, which would be measuring from the breech face to the muzzle end of the barrel, which I could use the tape measure for that. Sometimes the overall length is measured, the overall length of the firearm is measured, the height of the firearm is measured, as well as the width of the firearm. There are no specialty tools that are needed to disassemble the Gen 5 Glock 19. With the Glock platform, there isn't much finesse that needs to be used with any of the particular parts in disassembly. There are not any components in the Glock firearm that are really frustrating. I would not say it would be frustrating, but the part where you may run into some difficulties could be removing the trigger pin. It may require you to wiggle the slide stop as well as the trigger while removing that pin. The Glock does have springs that are under tension, so when removing the springs and disassembling the firearm, you do need to be aware of the springs so they don't go flying on you. The part that I say would probably be easiest lost would be the firing pin safety spring, as well as the bearing on the extractor rod. The bearing at the end of the spring on the extractor rod, that could easily be lost as well. What I would do to avoid losing the small parts, I would use a magnetic tray, and even though the bearing is made of polymer or plastic, so it wouldn't stick to the metal tray, I would still be able to keep up with it, as well as keeping the bearing and the spring with the extractor rod together and keep those all together in the magnetic tray. The Gen 5 Glock 19 does not have many parts, and this is why I chose this firearm for this week's presentation. Altogether, even looking at the exploded list, it shows a total of 33 parts. If you're going to count the screw for the front sight, we could say 34. If you're going to count the spring cups as individual pieces, we could say 35. But all together in the schematic list, it shows 33 with a 33B for the front sight screw. So again, 33 parts altogether, and that is the reason why I chose this firearm. The difference between having more or less parts in a firearm for the gunsmith is when we have to make repairs, the more parts means more areas that there could be an issue, more areas that could lead to an issue, and more areas that would have to be looked through to find the issue. That is why, like I said, I prefer the Glock 19 for its simplicity. It is very easy to disassemble. It can be fully disassembled with just a punch. You can do a full strip, not just a fill strip. A full detailed strip of the entire firearm can be done with just a punch. That is what makes the Glock platform an easy assignment for a gunsmith. Because of the small amount of parts, makes it easier to find the issue and then address the issue. This is my week 1 presentation for FTH 212-51915. Thank you.